How do you go from lounging on the couch watching backpacking videos to actually getting up and out on the trail? We're going to talk about that right now. I know it can be really hard to find the motivation to get outside and walk or hike or do any kind of training when the weather's not good. Like today, we got a little bit of snow here in Colorado, even though it's late spring. But if you're planning to do a long distance hike, one of the most important things you can do and the best way to train is to actually get out and hike. I know that's not always easy depending on where you live, so we are going to step inside and talk about some other tips and tricks for getting some good training in to prepare you for your next or even your first long distance hike. So before I did the Appalachian Trail Before I hiked the Appalachian Trail back in 2018, I did a ton of training. I actually signed up for boot camp and had been doing boot camp classes at 5:30 in the morning, 3 days a week, doing all kinds of workouts, load bearing, cardio, all of that good stuff. And I still discovered when I got out on the trail that I was not fully prepared. So let me tell you what I've learned are the best tips and tricks for getting prepared for a long distance hike or a through hike. It is not as complicated as it sounds. So if you are laying on the couch watching this thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't walked a mile in years, there is hope. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. But first of all, let me say, you will probably see a lot of advice that says that the absolute best way to prepare for hiking is by hiking. And I do agree with that advice. Once you're out on the trail, you are working out so many muscles that you would not be working out just walking around your neighborhood on flat roads or even hills. Trails have so many little bumps and angles and rocks and roots and things like that you're going to develop a lot of different types of muscles as you are hiking on a trail that you would not be able to work out while you are in your local area unless you live out in the wilderness or out in the woods. As you start training, you will definitely want to find some ways to get out on the trail and start working out those muscles. But the first thing you can do is just up your general activity level. So if you're starting from scratch, and some of you out there might be, some of you might already be fairly fit, but if you are starting from scratch, then the best thing I can suggest is to just get moving a little bit more. Whether that is doing housework or parking further away from the grocery store or whatever it might be to get your body moving, that is step number one. Step number two is to take it another level and start really focusing on cardio as well as strength training. So work your way up to that first mile if you are not used to walking, and time yourself and then try to walk that mile a little faster and a little faster. And as you go, start adding more distance. If you're doing 3 miles a night just walking around your neighborhood and you're doing it as quickly as you can while still carrying on a conversation, then you're actually going to be in a lot better shape than a lot of people. Work on that cardio fitness by doing any sport that you enjoy. That could be anything from swimming to tennis or any activity that gets your heart rate going. Having that cardio endurance makes a huge difference when you are climbing big steep hills or even doing long slow inclines. That can really be tough on the breathing, so having the good cardio capacity makes that a lot easier. So whatever level of fitness that you're starting from, just work on increasing your cardio conditioning with whatever activity you find enjoyable, because if you don't enjoy it, you probably won't do it. And training for a hike should not be torture and hiking should not be torture. So that's the whole reason that you want to get fit in the first place. Now, in addition to cardio, which is something that I really felt like I had needed more of before my first long distance hike, strengthening your leg muscles and your back muscles is important too. And you can strengthen your back and your core by carrying your pack on hikes. You can put some weight in it. And if you don't have your gear yet, you can just put, sacks of rice in there. They're very helpful. Put a pillow down in the bottom so you've got something soft in the bottom of your pack, and then concentrate the weight around your center of gravity, around your core. And strap that on and do some walking, and you'll start to feel that as you move, you're building up some muscles that you have not used in the past. As far as your leg muscles, I find that doing things like step-ups and not just stair climbing, because as you're climbing stairs, you're doing each step and they're not that high. They're all the same height. And like I said, not that high. So you're conditioning certain muscles, but not always the right muscles when you're just doing stair climbing. Think about getting out and just finding an area around town where there are rocks of different heights that you can step up on and practice building up those muscles for going up and going down. And if you can find a rocky trail near you, that's even better, because you can just go up and down and up and down. It's practicing stepping at different angles. And also, and this is very important, stepping with a different foot first. I tend to favor my right leg for stepping up. A lot of people just have a favorite leg that they always step up with, and being cognizant of that will help you build up strength in both legs instead of having one leg that you always lead with. That helps with balance as well because your whole musculature is a little bit more balanced. And I say that not as a fitness professional, so if you're out there and you're a professional and you're like, that's not quite right, feel free to drop a note in the comments and correct me. I'm just giving you information based on my own experience for what has worked for me and for other people that I know that have started training for doing longer hikes. So work on balancing the development of those muscles and doing these activities longer and more intensely. If you're finding these tips helpful, I hope that you'll take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. If you're a longtime subscriber, thank you very, very much for being with me all this time. I really do appreciate you, whether you just found me or you've been around for a long time. Another aspect of conditioning that you might not be thinking about in terms of training for a long distance hike or backpacking is actually getting up from the ground and getting down on the ground. You will find that there are a lot of times where you need to sit on the ground, lay down on the ground, pick stuff up off the ground. So you want your body to be used to doing those activities. And I would say just practice sitting on the floor as much as you possibly can and getting up without necessarily having something to lean on. Squatting is also very helpful. So just doing squats almost all the way to the ground and then getting back up again. Or if you've got issues with your knees or your hips, finding an adaptive way that you can do those activities, because there are not a lot of picnic tables and benches and things like that out in the woods. So if you're backpacking, you're going to find that you are sitting on the ground a lot. You're bending over to climb in and out of your tent. You're laying on the ground, and even though you might have a really nice sleeping pad that's super comfortable, you are still on the ground. And unless you're doing a hammock, you're going to need to find a way to get up and down on a regular basis. And of course, those muscles will develop on the trail. So if you start out with no conditioning at all, then you will develop that. But like I said, it's a lot more fun, a lot more comfortable to have that conditioning in advance. So think about that: squatting, sitting, getting up, getting down. You may find yourself on the ground unexpectedly if you get off balance or if you trip. So working on anything that's going to help you balance will help you be more prepared for a long distance hike. Just on this board, and you can see it's pretty wobbly. People don't always realize that having a heavy pack on your back can throw off your balance because your center of gravity is in a different place than you are accustomed to in day-to-day living. It's helpful if you are practicing with that pack on to try doing some interesting things like climbing over things or getting down on the ground, like I mentioned, sitting down with the pack on or getting up with the pack on, because if you fall down, you're going to have to get back up, right? And sometimes you might want to take that pack off before you get up, and sometimes you might just want to jump back up with the pack on and carry on with your hike. So practice the balance activities. And if you have a chance to do an activity like yoga, that is excellent for both strengthening your core and also helping with balance. If not, you can do balance activities like standing on one foot, leaning over with a foot out behind you, things like that. You can go online and you can find all kinds of balance activities that will help with that. If you are an older hiker, because unfortunately as we get older, a lot of times the balance is something that is not as good as it used to be, and so focus on that so that you are safer out on the trail and less likely to fall. Even if you don't do yoga, doing various stretches and something called a downward dog can really help stretch out these muscles that are at the back of your legs. So everywhere from your heel all the way up to the back of your bottom get stretched out when you do a downward dog. That, for me, that has been very helpful when I've had some issues with foot pain. Surprisingly, when I was on the AT, I was plagued by foot pain for months. And when I started doing downward dogs consistently in the mornings, that just made all of that pain go away. There are other stretches that you can do. I call it tent yoga. If you do kind of a figure 4 stretch to get your hip flexors loosened up, that helps in the morning, or you can do these also in the evening when you get in. Another thing I do, which is kind of in the category of conditioning, is just giving my feet a good rub when I get into the tent at night before I go to bed. As I'm changing into my sleep socks, I give them a good rub, and I even talk to my feet and thank them for getting me through the day. You might not want to do that. You might think it's a little quirky, but for me it works. It just helps me to really express some appreciation for the things that my body is doing. And I don't have the body of an athlete. I've never considered myself an athlete, but I am very thankful that my body is able to do these activities, and hopefully we'll be able to continue doing them for a long time. Hopefully if you pursue some of these training activities, then you also will have more fun outside and be able to either get out for the first time or continue getting out and appreciating everything that nature has to offer. So I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments if you have anything to share, and I'll look forward to seeing you here again next time.